Man, it's a new day. You know what I'm saying? A new day brings a new problem to a brother, and all I got to say is thank God for my mother. Cause without my mommy, dear, my life would have been a joke. Either locked up, laying dead, or still slanging dope. But nope, the Lord, he had a plan for me, and with his help, my mother made a man of me. Didn't blindfold me to the world we was living in. Taught me how to save my little dividends, so when I graduated, I'd have a little school money. But in the 6th grade, I wanted to be the school dummy, and flunked out of school with the flagpole, and left my mother dear at home with a sad soul. Because my mother worked the fingers to the bone, cause we was alone, and me, I brought a F home. My real pops, he broke out with the style, so I respect my stepdad for raising another nigga's child. So now we living comfortable, taught me the game and how to be responsible. But back then I couldn't see it. I wanted to be a grown man at 14, so the kids leaving, and ended up in a big fight, and told me not to come home until I got my shit right. So now I'm living at my grandma's home. My grandma's strong, she's got 9 kids of her own, and keeping me ain't no big deal. But now that I'm much older, I see just how the shit feels, being kind-hearted, not wanting to tell me no, even though my grandfather just had a stroke, and now the money's low. And pretty soon, a brother's gonna have to go, or either try to find a job so I can help out. I'm in the ghetto, I got to get myself out, and when I get out, I gotta try to pave the way, so my family can have a better place to stay. I'm losing all hope, a brother's falling short, I can't cope, so now I'm slanging dope, and now my granny knows I'm doing wrong. She just praying for me heavily, take care of a grandson, and the Lord must have heard her prayer, cause he made me get a grip and got me on up out of there. I heard my mother say them streets is gonna kill you. You couldn't have told me nothing back then, but now I feel you. I'm 18 and now I'm having big fun. My baby's mother just had my first son, May 11th. I never will forget the day a star is born. Let's name him Little Scarface, my firstborn. And yo, I'm a proud father. I got a son, I got to be my son's father. And selling dope ain't the way that I can get ahead. But what the hell, I got to keep my baby fed. I buy him milk and Pampers trying to do my part. And he's my son, I got to try to make him hard. I buy him clothes and jewelry, not the Tonka toys, because the Tonka toys will only punk my boy. And I don't want my son to look at life through a replica of reality, trying to make it lifelike. But yet and still I let my son be a kid, just give him up the real, exactly like my mama did. So when he gets to be a man, he'll appreciate the game I gave him way back when he used to roller skate. And now my son is 4 years old. I really got to give the real and try to play the father's role, because these years he'll remember most. So it's all about little Marcus and me becoming close. But I got a bunch of obstacles. If it ain't my line of work, it's the girlies on my popsicle. Now everybody's got my baby, wanting to have their hands in my pocket, trying to drive me crazy.
It's your daughter, don't she look like you?
I just can't tell. Why don't you take her to my mama do? Because my mother knows the real deal. On these hoochies popping coochie, trying to get a free meal. So now we in and out of coke, trying to get more money, bragging on a child support, telling her friends that she's breaking me. Now everybody knows that she was just faking, G. Come to find out the girl never had me. She's the baby's mother, but me, I ain't the baby's daddy. And biological testing proof you gotta get up off of me and go after the other dude. But now I finally got a real daughter, no need for the testing, I know that I'm the baby's father. I heard my daddy say them hoes will try to kill you. You couldn't have told me nothing back then, but now I feel you. I feel you. I'm 22 and finally got a grip on life. It's 1993, I put away my pocket knife and got a bigger stick to fight with. I'm young and black, so my choice ain't a nightstick. Because we living in a concentration set, and every day we face to face with death. I've seen my homies go and come, and Judgment Day is just something we can't run from. So I know my number's coming up, so I gotta protect myself from suckers who be running up. And even though I hate killing off my own kind, I gotta be a man, and as a man I'ma defend mine. My brother Quan is trying to keep the neighborhood at peace. Don't fight each other, we got to stand and fight the beast. So united we stand, but we gon' fall quick, because we always trying to take another brother's shit. And the cops is in the same boat. Just because we coming up quick, they think we slang dope. They shooting and kill, they gas ain't sparking duds. They shot my longtime partner Rudy in cold blood, and now the story's all twisted up. And if they gave the cop the chair, I really wouldn't give a fuck, because you left my partner's family with memories. And after hearing this, I know you gon' remember me, but yet and still I find it hard for me to stay in touch. I see his parents, and then I start to breaking up, because I know what you did was wrong, but you won't realize until you dead and gone. It ain't no justifiable homicide. You never gave a warning, you straight up shot him from behind. But all the crying in the world ain't gonna bring him back. You give a gat to a black, he don't know how to act. But you gotta tell your story to the judge, not the imitation judge, the judge that everybody loves. And if the man upstairs grants you forgiveness, then in reality you took care of your business. But regardless, I know you wanna kill me, but I ain't going out like that. You feel me? Yeah.
Wow. So check it out, man. I was supposed to do this paper yesterday, but I got caught on some bullshit. Y'all know I'm always on bullshit. The dislike meter on YouTube is like this high right now. The dislike meter is high again because I just don't give a fuck. Y'all know how I do, man. Got into it with that nigga Unc last night. It is what it is. I'm not trying to win popularity contests, so I don't care what people think. Don't care what people say, and I damn sure don't care what people do. This shit is a hobby to me. I do this shit on my free time because I like to learn information. But I do want to apologize to my nigga Palermo because he did ask me to do this paper, and I said I was going to do it, and I did, and I was on bullshit last night. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Complete and utter bullshit. Just exploded and went off on Unc again on DMG platform. Like, everybody that was involved, I ain't got no personal issue with DMG, Craig. You know, I fuck with you niggas. No personal issues with y'all, man. That nigga Unc, that nigga, like I said, I feel exactly the way I feel about him, man. I don't got personal issues with Juju and and Cedric. I still feel that way. Even though Juju was saying shit about me, I don't care. You just trying to defend your nigga. That's what that's what you're supposed to do. But I don't really give a fuck about none of that shit, nigga. You either gonna like me or not. You're gonna fuck with me. You're not gonna fuck with me. Don't fuck with me. The dislike meter has always been high on Yashu. I never gave a fuck if you like me or not. Don't give a fuck if you don't watch my videos. Again, I do this as a hobby. I don't get paid to do this shit. I make great money doing what I do as a living. So this shit I'm not like you niggas. You niggas depend on the internet to build something. Or build an image or whatever that you want people to revere you as or whatever. That's not what I do here. But Palermo, you did want me to read this paper. I'm going to read it today. I think it's going to hurt feelings because the idea of Moors has been blown out of proportion. A lot of people believe the Moors to be this sub-Saharan African group in an entirety. We're not saying there's no element, no small minor component of people being sub-Saharan African in the Moorish group. It's just a religious or cultural group. And the history of the Moors, I believe, was a derogatory term. It kind of started off like Christians. Like Christians was a derogatory term at first, and then it just stuck. The same thing with Moors. It even applied to your Eastern Muslims as well, and Asian Minor and stuff of that nature. They would, I think Christians would call them Moors. So it's a cultural group. So cultural groups usually encompass a lot of people with different genetic admixture. And what we're going to learn today is, in Spain and in Iberia, the people that were calling themselves Moors and the people that were calling themselves Christians, they really had a lot in common as far as genetic relatedness go. You know what I'm saying? It's just like blood in a crip. You're like, oh, y'all both black, but y'all beefing. You know what I'm saying? Y'all both African Americans, but y'all beefing. Two people that may have a similar ancestral structure, but they have cultures that clash. And that's what we see with the Crusades. We see with these Moors interacting with these Christians and then going back and forth with each other and banging on each other. The old 19th century way of looking at things, thinking that a different culture means a different ancestry, that shit been dead, that shit been debunked, been refuted. And we're starting to see more and more of that as these papers are released. We're seeing that, again, culture does not determine who you are ancestrally, right? Just because someone shares a similar culture does not mean they share the same mothers and fathers. And just because someone shares a different culture does not mean they don't share mothers and fathers with people that share that different culture, as we're going to see with Christianity, Christians, and Moors. But Moors have been a huge topic in the community, the so-called conscious community, because everyone, what was that movie called? Hidden Colors movie. They made a real big deal about this because the whole idea that there were darker skinned people in Europe ruling, known as the Moors, was pushed as like a badge of honor because they felt like there was a direct connection to African Americans and Moors. But that's not the case, because like the majority of these people would either be North African adjacent or Southern European adjacent, and most African Americans are not that. So when Palermo was on the channel saying that, hey, this is gonna hurt feelings, that's what he was referring to. He was referring to the fact that these people that are identitarians, and that be the issue. We be setting ourselves up. Because I used to be identitarian with the bullshit ass Hebrew movement, right? We be setting ourselves up because we have these expectations that reality just does not support. This idea that the Moorish people and all these people that were in Europe were somehow inundated with sub-Saharan African people or related people or adjacent people is just not true. It's not true. So Palermo, I'm gonna keep my promise to you. We're gonna read this paper top to bottom today. We're gonna go over the information, and hopefully we can get it in within an hour or two. I want it to be short. I want the video to be digestible. But yeah, I just had to let you know, man, I was on bullshit yesterday. That's why this video didn't happen. I was on complete and utter bullshit. As soon as I got off the JOB, came home, there was a video out there that I felt the need that I had to jump on and say what I had to say. Dislike meters up. Fuck it. It is what it is. Don't like a nigga. Whatever. I've been doing this shit for years. I never gave a fuck. That's why the channel is stymied, because I don't want to be friends with y'all. Don't care to be friends with nobody. I don't want to play the game. I don't want to be muzzled, and I'm not going to coddle nobody. It is what it is. Y'all just going to have to deal with it or do something about it. I don't know what to tell y'all. But anyway, let me pull this paper up. Let's just read this paper, man. Fuck what I got going on. Fuck y'all shoe. Let's talk about the Moors. Let's talk about this paper that just released. The preprint technically came out in October, but this is the official release. I think it came out in March. So this is fresh off the press. Let's go straight to it. All right, we're gonna dive right into it, man. And hopefully somebody gets something for this. When y'all going into scientific information, you got to take your expectations out of it, your preconceived notions, things that we think are priorities, right? Like, we got to just throw that in the garbage. That's what helped me. That's how I was able to wean myself from being pseudo. And I appreciate the James shit happening, because even before me and James fell out, right? James Cassell, for anybody don't know who I'm talking about, even before that happened, right? I I was already saying publicly that I was getting tired of these damn arguments. I'm tired of the Black Hebrew Israelites. I was already growing, you know what I'm saying, sick and tired of it. So he just made it where it was easier for me to go ahead and say, you know what? Since he's making a big deal about this, I can go ahead and cut this shit off. Because I already was feeling the type of way about trying to match haplogroups with biblical characters and shit. Because everything I was reading was contradicting the shit. So I'm like, nah, I got to keep it 100. I got to keep it 1,000 and just stick with the science. So now I've been agnostic ever since. So it is what it is, man. Fuck it. I rather go with the correct information or the most correct, the most parsimonious information that I can get my hands on than go and play this rigmarole that we've been doing for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years of just pretending to be something we're not. It's okay to venerate cultures. It's okay to, like we talking about the Moors, it's okay to venerate and celebrate what the Moors did, Christians did, but that don't mean we got to act like we came from them, or we all have to be a part of them, or come on, man. The reality, the globe is bigger than our ideas, right? The globe is bigger than our identities. We can't be every fucking body. It is what it is. Like, y'all just got to get over this shit. From Black Hebrew Israelites to Afrocentrics, Black Egyptomaniac. Like the issue, I just had a debate with a nigga that was trying to claim ancient China, bro. Trying to say the Egyptians migrated and colonized China and introduced and taught them Quran. Like, I literally just had a debate on this. Nigga, whole third round was about karate. It's because we've been listening to ideologues and being indoctrinated. We're not being educated on these YouTube channels. We being indoctrinated. I'm a prime example. I was being indoctrinated. I was a camp member. I was indoctrinated by Elder Nathaniel and the Purple Raiders. You know what I'm saying? Then you sprinkle religion on top of that. Now they telling you if you go against them, you going against God. So now your mind and your psyche all fucked up. So y'all just got to learn how to wean yourself out of that shit like I learned how to wean myself out of it. My method was to just go straight to the source. Stop listening to niggas on the internet, buy the papers and read them. Go to the experts and read they shit. Buy the books and read they shit. Bought books on population genomics and start and try my best to understand the concepts and the lingo and all that good shit, bro. Until then, you niggas gonna be stuck, bro. It's gonna be 10 years from now. Y'all still gonna be making these same fatal mistakes and arguments that don't make any sense and don't align with empirical reality. Y'all gonna keep doing this shit until y'all get to this stopping point. Like, you know what? These beliefs are just beliefs, and it just does not align with what the data is saying, and that's it, bro. Just keep it real. You can't keep it real with us, keep it real with yourself. Same thing with this Black Egypt shit, African Egypt. Like, I used to think like that because I was a Black Hebrew Israelite, but I kept reading paper after paper after paper saying they have European hunter-gatherer, mitogenome, that they Africans themselves, the North Africans themselves split from a Eurasian adjacent group. Like, it's too much. The evidence is overwhelming at this point, bro. Like, you just gotta hang it up, man. It's over with. It's over with. Nigga. You can't claim that Egypt shit no more. Now, if you want to venerate and honor and respect the ancient culture, be my guest. But that's different than trying to claim that you descend from these people directly. And Asar was saying King Tut could have had all these children, or Amenhotep could have had all these children. We could be some of those children. Shaka Atmos claiming that they went to West Africa. They left Egypt and went to West Africa. That's what his whole claim was, because he misread and misunderstood a scientific paper. Why? Because they're reading shit with their Afrocentric lens or with their Blackologist lens, and they're interpolating the data instead of just interpreting the data. And that's the issue, bro. You're trying to read into these papers, into these books, your own preconceived notions instead of just taking the data for what it is. Once I learned how to do that, I got better at this shit. Once I learned how to just accept what the evidence, is and what the data is saying, I got better. My understanding grew. My grasp of this shit grew. But I had to drop the goddamn beliefs and the misunderstandings and disunderstandings that I was getting from all these fake niggas on the internet. That's just what it boils down to. Fuck that shit. I'm gonna go straight to the source and just read it. And slowly over time, just got better, bro. It just is what it is. And until motherfuckers do that, we're gonna have the same conversation. It's 2025. We're gonna have the same conversation in 2035. We're gonna have the same conversation in 2045. We're gonna have the same fucking conversations and arguments until we realize that, hey, what we thought was right is wrong. These ideas that motherfuckers is yelling and screaming on the corners of 125th in New York, that shit wrong, man. It is what it is. We can move on to something else. Right? That's progress. But anyway, so here's the paper here. Shout out to Palermo. You wanted me to read this. I'm covering it for you today. Sorry for the delay. Like I said, I was on bullshit yesterday. And it is what it is. But anyway, the paper is Medieval Genomes from Eastern Iberia Illuminate the Role of Morisco Mass Deportations in Dismantling a Long-Standing Genetic Bridge with North Africa. As you can see, Gonzalo Oteo Garcia et al. And again, this is fresh off the press. As you can see, 2025 is when this was actually published. The abstract, and everybody watching should know by now, an abstract is a summation of the whole paper, right? Of the background, the Islamic influence on the Iberian Peninsula left an enduring cultural and linguistic legacy. I mean, just your sidebar on that, a lot of Spanish words have a Arabic influence because of this, right? Like they even say the word ole, the matadors will say ole. They believe that that's a form or variation of Allah and stuff of that nature. Even I forget the word for t-shirt and stuff like that, seems to have an Arabic influence. So there's a lot of words and stuff that the Spanish language picked up by interacting with Arabic speakers. But anyway, it says, however, the demographic impact is less well understood. And demography is pretty much the history of the study or the migration of people, right? So this study aims to explore the dynamics of gene flow and population structure in Eastern Iberia from the early to late medieval period through ancient DNA. And this is why I be telling people, like, if we're going to have a discussion on ancestry, then we got to deal with the field that deals with ancestry, bro. You just have to deal with that. And the field that deals with ancestry is DNA, the field of genomics. Because you got a lot of people trying to avoid and circumvent DNA because they don't like the results, right? But it is what it is. We have to deal with that field. Kane Cadman says, same here. They tell you never listen to Bible scholars, archaeologists. They are of the devil. Well, people that believe in the Bible say shit like that, man. Like people that are very, 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 very dogmatic, they will say, like, don't listen to anything outside of their purview, outside of the Bible. Outside. That shit's pseudo, bro. They suits. We really be saying the shit wrong. We be trying to call people. You a pseudo? No, you actually a sued. That's really how you say it. And I had to learn that shit recently. Results. Our comprehensive genomic analysis uncovers gene flow from various Mediterranean regions from into Iberia before the Islamic period, supporting a pre-existing pan-Mediterranean homogenization phenomenon during the Roman Empire. North African ancestry is present, but sporadic in late antiquity genomes, but becomes consolidated during the Islamic period. We uncover one of the earliest dated Islamic burials in Spain, which shows high levels of consanguinity. And consanguinity just means shared ancestry. That's what consanguinity means. For the first time, we also demonstrate the persistence of North African ancestry in Christian cemetery until the 17th century, in addition to evidence of slave trafficking from North Africa. Conclusions. This study reveals the complex interactions between political events and cultural shifts that influenced the population of Eastern Iberia. It highlights existence of a slave trade, underscores the low impact of the Reconquista in the genetic landscape, and shows the lasting impact of post-medieval events such as the expulsion of the Moriscos or Moors in 1609 CE on the region's genetic and cultural landscape through mass population displacement and replacement. All right, so there's the background. Andalusi Arabic was still spoken in the Iberian Peninsula in the 17th century CE, with its last remnant surviving in the hinterland of the Kingdom of Valencia. This situation of social and linguistic isolation endured by part of the local population was the closing chapter of a story of acculturation that started 9 centuries earlier. And remember, we dealt with what that term acculturation means. And this is exactly what this means. This is what happened to our ancestors, right? You know, if you have sub-Saharan African ancestry in America, this is what happened. We got acculturated.
Acculturation.
Assimilation to a different culture, typically the dominant one. And that's usually what happens. Let's go back. I just wanted to give a definition on that term so we know what we're talking about here, right? I said, although this process involved a degree of genetic admixture between newcomers and local Hispano-Romans, this admixture is not fully reflected in the present-day population. Several ancient genomes have highlighted patterns of long-distance mobility in antiquity and medieval times across the Mediterranean. Although some of these admixture events appear to have been transient, their impact was almost transformative as previous prehistoric migrations. Interestingly, however, their extent was more restricted in space and most noticeable in urban centers. This has become apparent as the field of ancient DNA started to shift the focus from continental scales to smaller scales, focused on archaeological questions in European context. The genetic past of the Iberian Peninsula as a whole has been a subject of extensive research in the last few years, both through modern and ancient DNA. However, despite the significant amounts of data produced, the sampling effort has not been homogeneous across periods due to research interest or sample availability, with the majority of studies focusing on prehistory. The historical periods, although extensively studied by historiography, have only been observed cursorily through the lens of ancient DNA. The eastern lands of Spain, from the river of Ebro Delta to the Campanario, which today roughly comprise the majority of the Valencian territory, appear to have been a buffer zone between Greek colonies in the northeastern coast and the Punic Carthaginian colonies in the southeast. Indigenous settlements did exist in the region, and some even gained temporary notoriety in the early phase of Roman Republic occupation. One such settlement was Arce, later known as Saguntum, modern Sagunto, whose siege by Hannibal Barca in 219 BCE triggered the start of the Second Punic War. And for everybody that didn't watch me go over the Punic paper, Punic people are clearly not what y'all thought they were as well. Punic people, or North African Phoenicians, or whatever you want to call them, are pretty much highly European. That was like the dominant admixture component amongst them, was Sicilian and Greek-like DNA. So when you see these Negro coins and ever, that's not evidence of them being sub-Saharan African or even quote-unquote African in the generic sense. Because again, majority of the DNA pulled from these multiple, I think they had like 200 samples, was largely Sicilian and Greek, and they most likely were traveling through the Sicilian Strait to come to Tunisia, come to Carthage. To just give you guys a recapitulation of that paper that we covered last month. It says later developments include the foundation of the colony of Valentia, modern Valencia, in 138 BCE as one of the earliest outside of Italy. In the later Visigothic period, this land overlapped with the contested province in Spania under Byzantine occupation in the centuries prior to the Islamic conquest, 552 to 624 CE. During this time, Valencia was a semi-autonomous city administered by bishops subordinate to the kings in Toledo. The territory was surrendered to the Islamic conquerors in the Treaty of Tudmir by the local Visigothic governor. The Islamic 711 to 756 CE led to the establishment of Al-Andalus and resulted in centuries of acculturation, coexistence, assimilation, linguistic intertwining, and conflict in the Iberian Peninsula. Because we all know about the Crusades and those wars against people of Islamic thought and people of Christian thought or Catholic thought, right? We all know about that. Al-Andalus was initially shaped by a phase of Arab political dominion under the Umayyads, however you say that, during both the Emirate 756 to 929 CE and the Caliphate 929 to 1031 CE periods. Following the collapse of the Umayyad Caliphate, fragmentation ensued. The instability of the petty Islamic kingdoms during the Taifas period led to distinct invasions by two North African empires between 1090 and 1237. As a result, Al-Andalus came to be dominated by successful Almozi or Berber military powers, the Almoravids 1040 to 1147 CE, and the Almohads 1121, the 1269 CE, which is crazy because me bringing up the Almoravids, or however you say it, the Almoravids, a lot of people bring them up about being Negro and stuff of that nature, and they think that's a genetic marker. And if memory serves me correctly, in that first Hidden Colors video or movie, they said something to the extent that these are supposed to be, our ancestors, some crazy shit like that, right? It said the introduction of Islam resulted in a new societal organization among the local Visigothic and Hispano-Roman population. In addition to a new Arab ruling minority, many Almozi tribes came to settle in the peninsula. This restricted and varied cultures and communities across the Iberian Peninsula. Christians living outside of Al-Andalus in the north, Christians living in Muslim territories of Al-Andalus, the Mosul Arabs, and converts to Islam and Al-Andalus, the Muladis, who came to represent the majority of the population. By the end of the 13th century CE, the Christian kingdoms controlled the majority of the Iberian territory. In the year 1238 CE, Valencia had been conquered, and the new kingdom of Valencia was founded by James I of Aragon. However, the Muladis still accounted for a large fraction of the population and remained so instrumental to the economy in certain regions that the new Christian elites allowed them to maintain their cultural and religious traditions, thus becoming the Mudehar, i.e. Muslims living in the Christian territories. However, by the 16th century CE, religious tensions against converts and Mudehars had increased. As a result, in the first half of this century, the Mudehars became targets of forced mass conversions, and new converts to Christianity became known as Moriscos. In practice and often under draconian scrutiny, the Moriscos kept their language and customs, and many continued practicing their religion in secret. So everybody watching, this is the same thing with the Jews. A lot of Sephardic Jews were forced to convert into Christianity, but they kept their practices in secret as well. A lot of time, like I said, a lot of you guys got this time period fucked up. Y'all think these people were sweet. It wasn't nothing sweet about no Christian or no more at this time. They was really putting belt to ass at this time and subjugating shit. Like y'all really be thinking oh no, they was just in church, praising God and praising the Virgin Mary and saying their Christian Creole. Nah, they was killing. They was murking behind this. They definitely was putting shit in the dirt behind it, bro. I mean, I've read excerpts about people getting their ass whooped for even questioning the doctrine and getting their ear cut off and like crazy times. And I'm with all the shenanigans. I love reading about it. This shit get me pumped because that's the shit I'm on. Complete domination and subjugation of the foes. Yeah, man, we try to kill ops, man. We ain't try to, never mind, man. We ain't trying to be friendly with these dudes. Anyway, it said this was particularly true for Moriscos in the kingdom of Valencia. However, this dualism came to an end in 1609 CE when Philip III decreed the expulsion of all Moriscos. Estimates suggest that in the kingdom of Valencia, more than 1/3 of the total population was expelled to North Africa. The total numbers are estimated to have amounted to more than 300,000 people. Altogether, these historical episodes highlight the possibility for the arrival, admixture, and dwindling of varied sources of ancestry in Iberia in different historical periods. Here we investigate in detail the extent to which North African-related ancestry fluctuated in Eastern Iberia during historical times, with particular focus on the genetic impact of the establishment of Al-Andalus and later conquest of the region by Christian forces. You see what I'm saying? Ain't nothing sweet about these dudes, right? It says, to this end, we generated shotgun genome data from 12 individuals from various locations across the Valencian region, including 3 pre-Islamic burials, Roman and late Visigothic context, 5 Islamic inhumations, and 4 individuals from a Christian cemetery, both medieval and post-medieval, covering a period over 1,000 years. So if you guys remember, because we just got this history lesson, right? Let's go up. About this North African component. Remember, it says that the North African ancestry is present but sporadic in late antiquity genomes, but becomes consolidated during the Islamic period. So it's there, but it isn't as prominent as people may want it to be. But that's the problem. Why are you wanting shit? Just go off the data, man. I don't know why it's so hard. Let's just read the data and take it for face value, what they're providing, and that's it. We don't need to add our input. We're not geneticists. I'm not a geneticist. Our input is not needed. They go to school. They get all these decorations, right, on their name for a reason. They go and they do the digs. They exhume the bodies. They sequence the DNA data. That's stuff that's out of our scope. We can't do that shit. Let's just keep it real. They're doing it. So we got to rely on them. We got to lean on what they publish. And y'all don't like hearing that because y'all dogmatic and y'all doctrinaires. And you can't hold on to you can't let go of your beliefs. You got to hold on to every goddamn thing you was told instead of just dropping the shit, bro. Let's just keep it real. And nobody telling y'all like that. Nobody talking to y'all like that. Everybody trying to coddle everybody in their own personal damn beliefs. Bro, this is where the rubber meets the road when we're looking at the data, man. Anyway, the results. Time transect overview and uniparental diversity. We generated new historical genomes from 12 individuals from 3 sites in the Valencian region. The time transect spans late antiquity, which is 3 samples there, medieval Islamic, which is 5, and late medieval Christian, which is 2, and post-medieval Christian with 2 samples. This set of individuals contributes a novel, meaning new, shotgun sequence generated historical transect for Spain. We selected these 12 individuals on the basis of DNA preservation from the total of 35 sample stream, which yielded a range of endogenous DNA from 0.01 to 41.58%, with the average endogenous DNA content being 7%. The sequencing of DNA recovered from these 12 samples, which included the petrous bones, molars, and the metatarsus. I know this because in my field of work, we have to get metatarsal boots, and I think that's the bones from your toes up. It said yielded average genome depth coverages between 0.21x and 2.34x. Petrous bones perform better than teeth on average. So yeah, a lot of times we're able to get DNA preserves better in the petrous, the hardest bones like your teeth, but basically your petrous bone has been a very, very good bone to preserve DNA over a long, extended period of time. Before we continue reading this, let's look at some of these DNA markers. Look at this. Because a lot of you guys will look at the Moors and say, oh, these guys are sub-Saharan African, they West African, they all this other shit. Not to say there's not any sub-Saharan African substratum or DNA found in Moorish burials, because there actually is one. I actually know of one off the back, which is E1B1A, M180. We don't, that's as far as we can sequence it. It's a downstream of M180, right? And you can argue and say that maybe that's one of the sub-Saharan variants. But when we look at majority of the picture, you're looking on the screen, the 12 samples that we have, it does not reflect that. Look, we got a J2A sample. We got a M183 sample, which we know is Berber-like, right? M5801 sample, R1B M269 sample. And I will put some of these in the Globe Trekker. We're waiting on Family Tree DNA to update the Globe Trekker for mtDNA. So we can start when I'm doing my videos. I can show y'all the female migration as well. But just looking at these samples, majority of these samples are clearly non-African. Clearly non-African. Majority of them. You got your L3D1. Yeah, that's going to be African. But outside that, you got R0A4. That's non-African. H5, non-African. K1A, J1C1V, H1HV, U4A1D, H2HV. I know there's somebody in the chat. You're a coon. Why are you saying these Moorish people are non-African? I'm simply reading to you the data. Hey, it is what it is, bro. This is what the experts in the field discovered and published. Email them. Tell them that they're being coons, that they hate black people. Tell them the shit y'all be telling me. You hate black people, Yashu. That's why you read this paper. Like, email them and tell them that they're evil. Well, I am the spawn of Satan, so it's okay. Call me evil. I am evil. I am the great adversary. I am Lucifer, the light bringer, because y'all living in darkness. I actually am all those things, so I don't mind being called those things. But yeah, take up your grievance with the people that wrote this shit, bro. They got emails, my nigga. Just email them and tell them, why the hell you got Yashu on the internet telling us that these niggas is non-African? Your paper is allowing him to shit and poo-poo all over my African dream. I want to make the whole world African. Everybody got to be African. But yeah, anyway, as y'all can see, most of the female mediated gene flow here is non-African, man. It's just that simple. And then we look at the males. So that's open up family tree DNA. Then I get back into reading the paper. He's like, oh my God, it's Sunday. He called himself Satan. Yeah, I am the great adversary. I'm very adversarial towards you niggas. You already know that, bro. Like, when you clicked on my video, you already knew that about me, bro. That's why you clicked it. You guys have an affinity to Satan on the Lord's Day. Oh, man. So we're going to open up my Discover Globe Trekker, as y'all can see. And we're going to type in some of these Y-DNA clades and see where they go back to. So I think this was L11, R1B L11. So, I mean, as y'all guys can see, this is clearly non-African, European. M183 is North African for sure, but like, I can't ignore this shit, bro. You can't ignore the female-mediated genomes. You're not going to be able to ignore the autosomal segments either. Y'all love running from nuclear genomes, which reflects on the population. Y'all love running from that. Like, majority of that's non-African, bro. Like, y'all just got to stop it, man. Y'all just got exactly, Sean. He said, I told y'all the more Iberian paper will hurt a lot of feelings, just like the Punic paper. Exactly. All this idea, Hannibal the Barca, and these Carthaginians were all these African niggas, and we somehow are related to the Garamonte. All this crazy stuff y'all be saying, but all these papers are not. They don't comport with it. They don't confirm none of that shit we was learning from Infudisci and them niggas. They don't, none of that shit they were teaching us, none of it. Come on, bro. It's just time to move on. It's 2025. So that's one sample there. One of the Y-DNA male-specific marker, right? Now let's get the J2A M260. M260. Where is that at? Where does Globe Trekker plot M260? There it is, JM92. How old is this? How old is this clade? 5,900 BCE. And it looks like its distribution, which is the purple. These are the offspring of JM92. It's, you know, pretty much European and Near Eastern. So there you go. That's another Moorish person. That's another Moorish sample. That's his backdrop. That's his ancestry. All right. What period of time was that one in? Hold on. Let's see. Medieval Islamic. Here it is here. So right here. We just looked up J2A. Male and female non-African ancestry. And it's the medieval Islamic period. And then we do have a what we will call possibly a sub-Saharan African variant here. This female L3D1. But you guys will hone in and hyper focus on this and ignore all of this. Why do y'all do this, bro? Like y'all doctrinaires, bro. This shit seeking out y'all pores on bro. Like, check this out. So, of course, M183 is North African, right? Let me type it in. M183. And as you can see, it ultimately comes from EM35, and they skirt across North Africa, so they've been there a long ass time, and they have it projected to have its origin in Morocco. So this is what the paper was talking about, that sporadic North African ancestry found in these burials. And as you can see, they do make their way into Spain and beyond. Very young haplogroup, by the way, 2,450 BCE is when this haplogroup forms. So that haplogroup was in the medieval Islamic 706 to 888 CE. And H1, that's European J1C, European H, R04. Then we got M5081. I think in the Punic paper, they was like, oh, there was 15 E1B1B samples. Yeah. Yeah. What about the rest of the samples? Majority of them were non-African. Why do we try to ignore that? I don't understand. Somebody cussed me out in the comments, man. He was like, fuck you and all your videos, man. We don't care about none of that shit. We only care about the YAP variants. I love my YAP markers too. So this is a downstream of EM81 as well, North African. So we got two samples that had North African male mediated gene flow, and one's from the medieval Islamic, period, and one's from the post-medieval Christian period. You see here. And then the last one's M269. Do I even have to type this into Globe Trekker? Like, we all know M269 is going to be European, Asian, Central Asian. All right, here we go, right here. RM269. Yeah, 4,440 BCE. A marker that's associated with the Yamnaya expansion. We all know that, right? Well, we all should know that by now. If y'all been watching me for a while. But again, just going off of the uniparental data, majority of it's non-African. Majority of it. And we ain't even talking about the autosomal part yet. The Moors were diverse like the Jews and Punics. Exactly, Sean. Exactly. Yes, yep. That is the period of the Moors' invasion into Spain. Those, yeah. That's what they gonna say, Sean. Those the fake Moors, those the invaders, the colonizers, as Reggie would put it. Reginald Marbury would put it. He would say these are the colonizers. And then they get mad when I disrespect people like this that have spent their life, misinforming people. They get upset. I can't tell them, no, don't touch the elders. Man, I wish Mel had that damn debate. Should we say F the elders? That would have been a good ass debate. But shit happens, right? Anyway, let's get back to the paper. It says we also report new radiocarbon dates for 3 burials from antiquity and 3 medieval Islamic burials. To the best of our knowledge, the new dates uncovered one of the earliest Islamic burials in the Iberian Peninsula with genomic data dating to 706-888 CE. For the remainder of samples without radiocarbon dating, we use relative dating based on archaeological context, material culture, and other relative information from excavation reports. The 12 individuals form the scaffold of a detailed genomic transect that starts in the 3rd century CE and stretches into the 17th century CE. So again, this is a long continuity here with these Moorish burials. It says the remains of the Roman burial from the city of Valencia had good endogenous DNA preservation at 35% in the context of this study. We identified the genetic sex of this individual as female, carrying the mtDNA lineage D4E1. And remember, we read a study about the Romans having East Asian variants or women amongst them. This goes along with it because I believe that sample was D4 as well. Notably, haplogroup D4E1 belongs to the East Asian clade that is rare in Europe throughout time. All this is showing is long mobility, demography of people. People are actually on the move. I know certain people don't understand that people can actually move. They got feet, right? But before we continue reading that, here you go. Here's a map of where these burials are at. Eastern Iberia or eastern Spain. You can see the bones of them exhuming the skeletal remains here. There's Valencia there, which is the main focal point of this study. Medieval Islamic, medieval Christian is the cross. And of course, the moon and stars can represent that, the antiquity time. And here's the time frame for each sample, right? And like Sean said, these samples in the medieval Islamic time frame is pretty much within the time of the invasion or the Moorish incursion into Iberia. And the earliest sample is from Roman times, which has an East Asian-like ancestry, which shows you the power of diversity and how diverse people are. Even Juju's mad at me. I did give her credit for bringing it out about Neanderthal DNA, right? And how good diversity is. Diversity actually helps us persist and exist. It's good to mix. It's not good to be too insular. And you start getting insular and too inbred, then you produce sterile populations, and sterile population spells the end. It spells the end of humans. Once we all become sterile, we can't produce no more. You understand? So it's good that we spread our oaks and we mix. The more mixed we are, the better chance that we have on surviving. That's why racism is stupid. Like just trying to tell people, don't mix with this person. That's dumb shit. That's nonsense. So again, we got a timeline here. Because a lot of you guys are anachronistic as fuck. Y'all really just need to look at time graphs and timelines and start building your arguments off of that, because I just debated a nigga on East Asia, and I'm presenting timelines that go back to 50,000 years ago, showing the continuity of people in the Yellow River dating back to the Tian Yuan man, which is 40,000 years ago. And this man talked about some shit that happened 5,000 years ago. It's like, bro, you really don't have a concept or a chronography of the events. You don't understand that the shit I'm talking about is a lot older than your presupposed timeline of Egyptians coming to China. Like, even though that's false as hell, but just are you even listening to the dates that I'm providing? So it's always good to just go off the damn timeline, stop being anachronistic. Visigoth sacked Rome 410. Visigoth the Kingdom of Toledo 507. The Battle of Guadalete 711. The Fall of Cordoba Caliphate 10,009. So Spain, the Moors begin to be the dominant force here in 711, and then that caliphate, as we read earlier, it becomes like a mess in 1009. The Almoravids and the Almohads, 1086-1146, conquest of Valencia by James I of Aragon, which is 1238 CE, and that's when we see it shift to Christians. The power dynamic goes to Christians. And in 1609, we have the expulsion of the Moriscos, which we read earlier, led to like 300,000 people estimated being expelled from Spain. And then this is just explaining this graph here, A and B and D and all that. So anyway, we just read D4E is rare throughout Europe. It's an East Asian variant, but we do find it here in Spain. It says the radiocarbon dating of the sample indicates an age range of 249 to 408, calibrated CE, median 338 CE, aligning well with its archaeological context. These dates indicate the woman lived through a period of intense change in the Roman world marked by the Christian persecutions and the Edict of Milan, 313 CE, or Milan. However, although poorly preserved, the burial appears pagan in nature as it was accompanied by the remains of a swine head. Similar offerings are also found in much earlier burials in the city from the Republican period as part of the Porca Praesentanea ritual. The remains of an adult and infant from the late Visigothic period in Spain, 668 to 874, calibrated CE, were found together in a round pit excavated in a site near Gandia. Genetic analysis identified the adult as a male and the infant as a female. They carry mitochondrial DNA haplogroups HV and H2A1E1A, respectively. The adult carried R1B L11 Y chromosome haplogroup. So again, this is basically a non-African individual on the mother and father side. It says the read detected a first-degree kinship between these two individuals. And like when we read in the abstract consanguinity, that's pretty much what it's talking about, sharing ancestry, right? So this is what they were talking about, the first-degree kinship between these two individuals. And first-degree relationship means mother, father, brother, sister. Those are your first-degree relatives. It says, combined with their ages at death, simultaneous burial, sex identification, and non-matching mitochondrial DNA haplogroups, we inferred the kinship status to be father and daughter. They were buried at the same time, and although the cause of death is unknown, they bear no traumatic injuries. From the medieval and later periods, we sample various sites from the Vall de Uixo and the city of Valencia. Samples from Vall de Uixo belong to various Islamic cemeteries or maqbaras of rural settlements in the higher Alqueras, Ceneja, and Beni Falgul, in lower Alqueria, Benis Hat areas of the modern town. As they expanded, these settlements eventually fused together. We obtained older radiocarbon dates 706, 888, and 885, 10 to 28 calibrated CE, respectively, for individuals from higher settlements, whereas the individual from the lower settlement was dated to a younger age, 1269 to 1378 calibrated CE. Some of these radiocarbon dates are much older than anticipated, but confirmed a suspicion among local archaeologists that the high ground settlement had been established earlier. Among these samples, we found West Eurasian mitochondrial DNA haplogroups U4A1, HV, H1, and J1CB, as well as the more typically African haplogroup L3D1. So again, majority of these Moriscos would have been of what we call Eurasian DNA. And we do find one that's African. And I know you Afrocentrics love to just hone in on one, like y'all do with Ramesses III in Egypt. All the rest of the DNA is non-African. Y'all look at Ramesses. Oh, he has E1B1A. What about the other 90 goddamn samples? More, it's interesting that you bring this up about Islam had made it to China by 711 AD, because it's believed that the compass comes from China, right? So the Moors get the compass via trade with China. That's the belief. If anybody want to correct me on that or provide information on that in the chat, go right ahead. But I didn't even think about that until you said that shit, bro. That because the compass, I believe, has its origin in China. Anyway, it says, as for the Y chromosome lineages, we found J2A1, A1, A2, 2A1A, -M92, and E1B1, 1B1A1, and 183 in the two males. The J2M92 likely has a Levantine origin, but was present in Italy by Roman times. The M183 is overwhelmingly the most common extant male lineage in North Africa, where expanded within the last 3,000 years. The burials from a medieval Christian cemetery that remained in use until the mid-19th century CE in Valencia were dated based on archaeological context and historical record. 2 of these were assigned as late medieval graves from the 14th and 15th century CE. We identified both of these individuals as genetically female with mitochondrial DNA haplogroups H plus 7720 and R084. The others were post-medieval graves of 2 males dating to the 16th and 17th century CE, respectively. From the 16th century individual as seen in figure 1C, only the lower body was recovered with an iron shackle around the bones of his right leg still visible, suggesting enslavement. This individual carried West Eurasian H5 mitochondrial DNA lineage and a North African N183 Y chromosome lineage. This GOG60 carried a West Eurasian K1A mitochondrial DNA and West Eurasian R1B M269 Y chromosome lineage. So again, we can see majority of this mediated DNA with these Moriscos are actually Eurasian. We do see the North African component, and we do have a what seems to be a sub-Saharan African component with the L3D1. It says pan-Mediterranean genomic homogenization trends in the eastern coast of Roman Hispania. All 3 samples from antiquity appear as significant outliers with respect to the modern Spanish population in the PCA. The Roman female individual trends towards modern Central and Eastern Mediterranean populations, sitting midway between present-day Spanish and Sicilian individuals. Again, these are Moriscos. We're not seeing anything that is indicating them to be sub-Saharan African, West African adjacent. We don't see it. It says her heterozygosity levels appear slightly higher than the average, however, suggesting multiple ancestry contributions from within the Mediterranean world. In the PCA, this individual shares a hybrid space defined by some other Roman, Iberian, and Punic individuals from Sardinia. We conclude that her affinities were derived from a complex admixture process of 2 genetic sources that do not exist today as a consolidated population. One parental source was probably Iberian, but with higher North African ancestry than the present-day Spanish average. The other source was likely Italian, Sardinian origin, with possible Eastern Mediterranean influences, typical in the Roman imperial period. However, it is difficult to pinpoint the exact sources due to extremely high heterogeneity observed among individuals in the Mediterranean during the late Roman periods. And this is the same issue they had with the Punic paper. They could not, pinpoint the exact European source. All they knew was that the Sicilians and Greeks both share these signals. So it has to be between those 2 populations, right? So that was the most parsimonious explanation. That's why in the paper, they called it Sicilian, Asian-like, because those are the 2 populations that seem to fit the PCA the best. The proximal QP atom modeling also highlights the contribution of an Eastern Mediterranean source with 62.4 to 70.3% of her ancestry modeled as related to Lebanon Roman SG, albeit with large SES and 0.006 SES ranging from 38.3 to 13.4%. Again, majority of his ancestry is non-African. So what you heard in the old Hidden Colors documentary is false. It's very false. So this is consistent with the increased Balkan Neolithic admixture proportion observed in the distal QP atom model at 68.6 plus or minus 3.8%. That's very high, actually. Furthermore, the mitochondrial haplogroup D4E1 carried by GOG50 is extremely rare among ancient Europeans and Near Easterners. There are only a couple instances in present-day Europeans. Modern data shows that D4 and D4E lineages, except for D4E1, are all found in East Asia. Other D4E1 sister haplotypes are also widely dispersed in Central, East, and Southeast Asia, and to a minor degree, South Asia. In particular, D4E1 has been identified in a Xiongnu individual from the Atli dating to 51 to 155 BCE, while it is not found among 60 Xiongnu individuals from further east. The Xiongnu formed a diverse steppe empire, which might be a potential source for the lineage in Europe through the 3rd century CE, dispersal of Huns, Alans, and Sarmatians. It has also been identified in a burial similar age, 203 to 319 CE, from the Roman era in Turkey. Our discovery of the lineage in Iberia so far west of Mediterranean appears strikingly early. However, as shown in Garcia Borja et al., migrants from Eastern Europe were already passing through Hispania before the start of the so-called Germanic invasions. Isn't it fun to learn about migratory history and demography and how people move from distal or very distant places and intermingled? It says here, to trace recent East Asian ancestry in the genome of this individual, we made use of the F statistic and local ancestry inferences. Outgroup F statistic, F4 statistics did not detect extra genetic affinity to Asian populations. Similarly, LAI evaluation with RF mix did not reveal outstanding stretches of East Asian related ancestry, although it shows some very short South Asian like haplotypes. And this is what happens after you migrate and mix and keep having children and having children and with an outgroup. Eventually, your children are going to be majorly like the outgroup that you mix with. Over time, that's just what's going to happen. I was explaining this to Judah Nazareth because he has Asian children, Asian mixed children. Their children are most likely going to mix with other Asians, and then their children are going to mix with other Asians. So what's going to happen is his children, his grandchildren, and his great grandchildren are going to be majorly Eurasian or East Asian. Majorly. They're going to lose majority of that sub-Saharan African component that he provided at the onset with the first generation. As the generations continue, unless they mix back into a sub-Saharan adjacent group, like an African American or like a West African or something like that, that is going to fade with time. So when people ask questions like, well, how long does it take for someone to change from this genome to that genome? How long does it take an African to become a non-African? Here you go. It happens with admixture. It can happen within a few generations if you mix it with outgroup. It's just going to happen. It says, what time period was the L3 from? The time period was the medieval Islamic, which was, I think, 5th or 5th or 6th century to 8th century CE. Sean says the compass had an extremely high value and trade back then, highly sought after item. I've only seen one L sample from later Moorish periods. In fact, the Chinese Muslim sailors were getting it in for real. Moors, that's because of the large harem the Moors had. You know, they sprinkled it with a few sisters. Yeah, yeah, they was definitely fucking. They were definitely passing their genes down, as we can see with these paper. They were successfully impregnating the women. They were passing women talking about y'all crazy. But yeah, that's exactly what they were definitely getting it in. You know, fucking hoes splashing on you niggas. Anyway, this result mirrors the finding of the Xiongnu D4E1 individual who already carried around 90% West Eurasian ancestry. This is what we're seeing, bro. Like, again, you just got to accept the data, bro. This is the data. They're finding the bones in the ground. They're exhuming the bodies. They're sequencing the genetic genome, and the genome is telling us the story. We don't need Infudishi to tell us the story. We don't need Bobby Hemmett. We don't need these so-called black studies niggas that went to Howard or some shit to tell us this. We don't need Jabari. We now have the samples that have been exhumed, excavated, brought out of the ground, and DNA samples successfully extracted. And what we're seeing is majority of this ancestry is not African. Deal with it, bro. The two kindred individuals in the late antiquity occupy space with some other post-Roman and medieval Islamic samples from Iberia, also shifted toward Western North African individuals on the North African client of the PCA. Admixture and QP atom results indicate that the father carried North African related ancestry, tested using Ibero-Mauritian and Morocco E-Neolithic as proxies, respectively. However, in admixture, the daughter displays approximately half the amount of such ancestry than the father. So again, over time, you lose that ancestry, right? Why? Because one parent provides 50%, the other parent provides 50%, and then that's through the process of meiosis. That is shifted and converted and you lose that as well as it's scrambled up to create you, right? So you're not going to always inherit everything from your parents. You only get 50% of each parent. So over time, through subsequent population, that substratum layer of DNA becomes less and less and less. The more your descendants mix with an outgroup, it just happens that way. That's how DNA transmission works. It says this likely indicates that the mother contributed none and suggests different genomic backgrounds of the two parents. The case of GOG34 is interesting since his genome-wide pattern aligns with the core of Islamic genomes, and its median carbon-14 dating 734 calibrated CE makes him contemporary with the start of the Islamic conquest, yet the archaeological context appears pre-Islamic. Supervised and unsupervised admixture, QP-Atom models, and LAI results confirmed that all pre-Islamic individuals carried North African ancestry, but at lower levels than the later medieval Islamic individuals. In pre-Islamic times, the influx, I'm about to see here, the influx of North African ancestry was more sporadic since it is not found consistently across all published individuals. All published individuals, it is only with the onset of the Islamic period that it becomes more sustained, consolidated at a higher proportion. I'm going to have to do a quick commercial break. I got an important phone call. So while I do that, I'll be right back and we'll continue. Just stay there. Don't go nowhere. I'll be right back.
It's a new day. You know what I'm saying? A new day brings a new problem to a brother, and all I got to say is thank God for my mother, cause without my mommy dear, my life would have been a joke, either locked up laying dead or still slanging dope. But nope, the Lord, he had a plan for me, and with his help my mother made a man of me. Didn't blindfold me to the world we was living in, taught me how to save my little dividends, so when I graduated I'd have a little school money. But in the 6th grade I wanted to be the school dummy, and flunked out of school with the flagpole, and left my mother dear at home with a sad soul, because my mother worked the fingers to the bone, cause we was alone, and me, I brought a F home. My real pops, he broke out with the style, so I respect my stepdad for raising another nigga's child. So now we living comfortable, taught me the game and how to be responsible, but back then I couldn't see it. I wanted to be a grown man at 14, so the kids leaving, and ended up in a big fight, and told me not to come home until I got my shit right. So now I'm living at my grandma's home. My grandma's strong, she's got 9 kids of her own, and keeping me ain't no big deal.
All right, I'm back, y'all. I'm back. I had to take that call. I could not let that go on the back burner, man. I'm sorry, but I could not miss that call. That's important. I gotta leave here in a minute. So, but anyway, as we were saying before we were rudely interrupted, we were talking about this right here. The DNA, North African DNA being sporadic. Some of the North African DNA, as we read earlier, may have been mediated through slavery. So yeah, like we just read, man, before I had to walk away. Apologize for that, but we're going to continue. It said, it is only with the onset of the Islamic period that it becomes more sustained and consolidated at a higher proportion. Figure 3. So I want to look at this figure right here. And this is that admixture that they were discussing. So as you can see, the samples, they're using Ibero-Mauritanian, which will be your North African sample, to represent this, which is this green component, and majority of these samples barely even have it. You see what I'm saying? Royal Islamic period right here, that's after the invasion, and that's not the major component. So everybody that was hoping that, because what happens is what these blackologists do, what these Afrocentrics do, they look to try to treat North Africa as their way of still pushing their black ideology or blackologist ideology, right? But again, there's the samples in your face, even the North African component. And we all know from the modern papers that have been coming, up-to-date papers, the North African component is a result of a back to Africa migration as well. But even if you look at that, it is the majority component here. It is the majority component, as you guys can see. The green component, the Roman Visigothic period, we don't really see it pronounced as much. We see the Caucasus hunter-gatherer component is bigger than that. We see the Natufian component is bigger than that. And the Western hunter-gatherer component is almost comparable to it, right? Rural Islamic, same thing, same components. What you're looking at is pretty much a stable continuity as far as the autosomal ancestral components go, according to this chart here. The four major components we see with these people: Ibero-Maurutian-like, Caucasus hunter-gatherer, Natufian, and Western hunter-gatherer. And again, the Ibero-Maurutian component is, you know, some of the smallest, and along with the Western hunter-gatherer. Majority of it's Natufian-like and Caucasus hunter-gatherer. And we know Natufian-like DNA is Levantine-like DNA, right? Yeah, y'all know how I go with money calls. With money, so I got to wrap this shit up. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I ain't gonna bullshit with y'all. I gotta finish this shit because I gotta go. But man, I wish I would have had a little bit more time. But it is what it is. I gotta handle business, bro. Look, supervised admixture define a distal model using a proxy source for ancestry, determines differentiate hunter-gatherer groups from Europe, Western hunter-gatherer, the Caucasus, the Levant, and North Africa. RF mixed chromosomes ancestry segments colored according to the four possible sources from the 1,000 Genomes Project. African proxy for North African contribution, European representing the Iberian contribution, East Asian and South Asian as proxies, the broad Asian ancestry. And as we can see here, it ain't looking good. The Islamic period here, look at this. Majority of it is this orange component, which is Natufian-like, and the yellow is Caucasian hunter-gatherer, and the green, again, is Ibero-Mauritian, and the blue is the West hunter-gatherer components, which is European, as you can see here. So, yeah, that's that. That's that. I would, hate to crush your goddamn fantasy. And then when we look at the medieval Islamic and late medieval post-Islamic Christian burials, you can clearly see that majority of these chromosomes are painted blue. So majority of these chromosomes are European. As y'all see that, you see that EUR, that's European. The blue segments represent European mediated gene flow here. Majority of them are European, bro. Everybody clicked off the video. No, don't say it. Don't say it. Hey, the blue component is European. Anyway. You see little spots of the African component, which is the North African component, the little red spots. We see it there. Boom, boom, boom. You see it in this post-medieval Christian burial. You see a lot of red there. But, the dominant component is going to be the blue component. Anyway, survival widespread North African ancestry into the 17th century in the Valencia Kingdom. The group of medieval Islamic individuals appear homogeneous in the PCA, with the exception of GOG23. They form a cluster together with pre-Islamic GOG34 and two individuals, GOG56 and GOG57. So again, that person that had mitochondrial D, they cluster with it. They cluster with that person that was there before, showing a continuity even during the time of the Visigothic people. It says, in addition to some other published Islamic individuals from elsewhere in Spain, we identify this cluster space as a consolidated Berberized population that formed largely during the Al-Andalus era. In our region of study, North African related ancestry is present in these individuals at 14 to 18%, estimated with QP atom, with the SE greater than 3% and p-values ranging from 0.043 to 0.89. These are slightly higher levels than in early individuals, as also in the supervised admixture with distal source population. GOG23 is the oldest Islamic burial dated in our data set, 706 to 888 CE. It constitutes, to our knowledge, one of the earliest samples of Islamic burial from Eastern Iberia to be studied genetically. This individual is drawn even closer in the direction North African populations in PCA and had the highest amount of North African related ancestry, is shown by admixture at 31.3 plus or minus 2.5%. In LAI, using temporarily proximal sources, we can model GOG23's ancestry as deriving 50% from a source genetically resembling Canary Islands, Guanche, SG, and approximately 50% from Southern European sources, similar to either Portugal, late Roman, or Italy, Roman Imperial. The two late medieval samples from the 14th and 15th century CE were recovered from a Christian cemetery belonging to the parish of San Lorenzo in the city of Valencia. However, these two individuals still group within the medieval Berberized PCA cluster. 2 centuries after the Christian conquest of the city, the levels of North African related ancestry are still comparable to those observed in the Islamic period. Post-medieval GOG 59, who was found with an iron shackle around his right ankle, clusters closely with modern Moroccans and Algerians in the PCA, pointing to a North African origin. Most present-day Berber individuals in North African PCA fall along a line defined by the amount of sub-Saharan ancestry. GOG 59 sits at a low sub-Saharan ancestry side of this climb. Outgroup F statistical analysis show that the highest shared drift is within present-day Moroccan Berbers. We can model much of his ancestry as derived from North African-related source. This result is further supported by the second PCA, computed using alternative, the Affymetrix North African dataset, where GOG 59 appears closest to present-day Berber individuals from Morocco and Algeria. And that makes a lot of sense because, again, GOG 59 has the most red segments on this chromosome. See, chromosome 21 has these red segments, 11, a bunch of red segments, and that indicates African DNA. And in this case, North African DNA. Let me go down. In contrast, the other post-medieval individual from the same cemetery, GOG 60, was the only one in our data set that fully clustered the PCA within the modern Spanish population. No traces of North African ancestry could be identified with admixture or QP atom analysis. The LAI profile also indicated no discernible trace of sub-Saharan African haplotypes in the tested chromosomes. Furthermore, neither uniparental markers indicate affiliation to the Maghreb, but instead rather typical European lineages, as we've been reading all morning. This profile is a sharp contrast to GOG 59, who appears to be full North African origin when compared to present-day data set. It also contrasts with the immediately preceding individuals from the late medieval period, whether Muslim or Christian, and the 3 individuals from antiquity. Potential genomic impact of social isolation of Mudejar and Morisco communities. Based on the information gathered in analysis above, we combine some individuals into groups: medieval Islamic, late medieval Christian, while treating individually those plotting separately on the PCA. Furthermore, by combining the dates, genetic ancestry, and burial contacts, we argue that we can identify some individuals as belonging to different socio-historical groups. GOG 23 and 26 fall into the Muladi category, Christian converts to Islam. GOG 20 into the Mudejar, Muslims in the Christian territories, and GOG 5, 6, and 57 could be identified as Moriscos, Muslims forcibly converted to Christianity or descendants thereof. To measure the evolution of genetic affinities of our archaeological samples with modern populations from Iberia and North Africa, we ran the outgroup F statistic test by merging populations from the human origins and Arana et al. The results obtained conform to what we observe in the PCA admixture QP atom and LAI results. The measurements of shared drift indicate trend of increased affinity toward modern Iberian groups as the samples become more recent, with the striking exception of GOG 59, who was an early Islamic individual with some Iberian-related ancestry. GO 59, who seems fully North African in ancestry, displayed the highest outgroup F statistic values with present-day Maghrebi populations, especially Moroccan Berbers from Tisnit. The Islamic core group of 4 individuals do not show particularly high affinities with either North African Berber groups or Iberian Europeans, highlighting more balanced contributions of both sources of their ancestry. In relation to other samples analyzed, the late medieval Christian grouping showed a similar trend, although with signs of increased affinity with present-day Basque. Finally, GOG 60, the post-medieval individual from the 17th century, displayed the opposite pattern of GOG 59 with the highest F statistic value shared with Iberian groups. So basically, he looks Southern European in that regard. Says due to the coverage and sample size constraints, in order to study ROH patterns in depth, we combine two approaches: HAP-ROH on the whole genome based on pseudo-haploid genotypes, ROH, the O and PROH for the 3 imputed chromosomes. The use of HAP-ROH allowed us to explore all chromosomes, although focusing on a subset of 1240K sites. I'm sorry if I'm speed reading. I gotta get through this shit. I gotta go. So I'm just trying to just read this shit. Maybe y'all not gonna benefit from this last part because I'm not gonna be able to just slow down and go over this and see how much we got left. All right, we're almost at the discussion, so it's almost over. I might just skip to the discussion at this point, actually. Speed blitz this real quick. Yeah, let's just skip to the discussion. Who cares about the ROH? Let's just go here. The results presented here buttress the idea that gene flow from North Africa to Iberia was ongoing in the centuries preceding the Islamic period. However, we show that this gene flow was not restricted to southern Iberia, but it impacted eastern Iberia since at least late Roman times. This inflow is evidenced by the finding of North African ancestry in all pre-Islamic genomes, albeit at low levels, and that's what I was bringing out earlier. Our data also suggests that during the centuries of Roman imperial rule, there was a significant dynamic of pan-Mediterranean homogenization contributing sporadic Asian-related ancestry as exemplified by an individual GOG 50 with lesser intensity. This mirrors the dynamic observed in Rome itself, a phenomenon most likely driven by mobile peoples from Italy, Greece, Asia Minor, and eastern provinces as slaves or otherwise. However, more genomes are necessary for a full comparison with other localities. This transient phenomenon hints at much more complex picture if we wish to understand and quantify accurately the genetic contribution of North African migrants in the later Islamic era. We also highlight the apparent lack of ancestry contribution from native peoples from the Arabian Peninsula during the Al-Andalus epoch in the genome study in this work. Note that a shortcoming of studies focusing on the Islamic period is the lack of contemporary North African and Arabic ancient genomes, a gap that should be filled in the future. The profile of genome recovered from the burial of the female GOG 50 from the Roman colony of Valentia provides interesting insights into the heterogeneity of the Roman population of the city. The local Iberian population in coastal regions may have been no stranger to North African influence, and the existence of Romanic languages in North Africa could have been a factor aiding to the later swift Islamic conquest. This is supported by the fact that the two post-Roman individuals also carried North African-related ancestry. The Islamic conquest of the Iberian Peninsula beginning in 711 CE further intensified this phenomenon by intertwining the Maghreb and parts of Iberia intimately together, also seen at the genetic level. The genomes from the Islamic period therefore point to an intensification and consolidation of the genetic Berberization in Eastern Iberia during the Middle Ages, rather than a completely new phenomenon. The genetic structure of medieval Iberia became a patchwork resulting from the shifting religious and cultural geographies. We argue that the Islamic burials who carried a higher North African contribution in their genomes were likely representatives of the Muladi population, people of Iberian descent who adopted Islamic culture and religion and intermarried. See, and this is what I was saying at the beginning, at the onset of this video. I was telling you that. You know, again, this is why you can't judge people off of what culture they have, because that does not necessarily point to their ancestral background. As you can see, these people are not Arabic in the genomic sense, right? They're pretty much Iberian aligned. And again, they just adopted this culture. This results from acculturation, right? Again, these are people of Iberian descent. They come from Spanish, Portuguese-like people. That's what that means, right? Who adopted Islamic culture and religion and intermarried. The original meaning of Muladian Arabic was a person of mixed Arab and non-Arab ancestry. The oldest Islamic individual presented here, GOG 23, lived within the first generations following the conquest and had North African and Iberian-related ancestries, suggesting the acculturation was relatively swift and accompanied by admixture between local and newcomers. However, his high level of consanguinity might suggest a limited mating pool conducive to close kin marriages. A similar hypothesis was also suggested for also close kin offspring in 17th century CE Iberian sites, both in Islamic and Christian contexts, but may not be applicable in the case of previously published individual from a later site in Granada dating to the Almohade period. Refined dating in more ancient genomes at higher coverages, as well as contemporary genomes, will be necessary to identify any possible temporal and or geographical trends in ancestry, consanguinity, and effective population size in Islamic burials spanning key transitional periods. On the other hand, the two late medieval Christian burials for Valencia, who carried similar fractions of North African-related ancestry, may be representatives of the Moriscos, the people who converted to Christianity at the beginning of the 6th century CE. Mass conversions would explain the obvious genetic continuity, despite the alleged Muslim population displacement and socio-political changes experienced following the Christian conquest. The apparent trend growing homozygosity through the medieval period, genomic profiles with similar ancestry compositions have more longer organic ROH and fewer short ones in early medieval individuals than in later medieval samples, could be the product of habitat fragmentation by means of loss of connectivity, social isolation, and reduction of Mudéjar and Morisco communities in the new Christian society. We caution that this observation can only be speculative given the small sample size and should be tested when more radiocarbon dates and genomes become available. Regarding the post-medieval individual GOG60, the reason for his high level of homozygosity must be found elsewhere. He might originate from another isolated social group of Christians in Islamic society, like the Maza Arabs. Our results also shed light on urban dynamics in Valencia, despite property seizure by new Christian elites. Historically described expulsion of native Muslim citizens and repopulation with Aragonese and Catalan people, the genetic makeup inside the cemetery of San Lorenzo, Valencia, did not change compared to the preceding rural Islamic population from Val de Uixo and with other urban Islamic individuals from Valencia. It is striking that our sole 17th century genome is the only individual lacking North African related ancestry, although it's only a single sample. This result is consistent with the lower fraction of North African ancestry found in modern populations of the Valencian territory. We provisionally interpret this pattern as a reflection of a historical event that occurred in 1609 CE, the expulsion of the Moriscos from the Kingdom of Valencia. This expulsion and repopulation with people from northern territories effectively erased the local North African component. Christians, especially those from more northern regions, likely carried less North African-related ancestry than the Moriscos that they replaced, although this remains to be tested. It must be noted that individuals with North African ancestry, such as GOG60, may have also lived in Valencia before the 17th century. On the other hand, the presence of an enslaved male individual, GOG59 of Berber origin, buried in the Christian cemetery highlights the lower status of inhabitants with links to the Barbary coast following the Reconquista and before the final expulsion. The elucidation of the genetic origin of GOG59 offers an insight into the provenance of some of the slaves during the Valencian Golden Age, 14th to 16th century CE, and substantiates historical accounts of Christian raids to capture and enslave people in North Africa, although the provenance of slaves was not limited to North Africa. Our final point, highlighted by the survival of North African-related ancestry in substantial proportions until the 17th century, is the widespread presence of such ancestry in present-day South Americans. Christian converts were forbidden to migrate to the Americas, although clandestine journeys probably occurred. However, the North African-related ancestry signature seen today in South America is too high to be satisfactorily explained by sporadic movement. The high estimates of North African ancestry in South America suggest that colonial migration involved people carrying higher levels of this ancestry than the average in present-day Spain. Furthermore, the times estimates in North African admixture in South America are consistent with Iberian admixture episode. This strongly suggests that most of the ancestry that was introduced by the initial colonial immigrants, The late two medieval individuals from Valencia further support this observation. A population with increased North African ancestry existed at the time in Spain, likely not only in Valencia, given the cities in the south, such as Sevilla and Cadiz, were the main ports of the colonial voyages to America. We hypothesized that the North African-related ancestry also survived in the southern regions after the end of the Islamic period and became the source of such ancestry introduced into South America. And this also would explain why we see Sephardic Jewish-like related DNA in South Americans and even Central Americans. That would explain that too. Conclusion. Our ancient DNA suggests that little to no effect of the so-called Reconquista in the genomic ancestry of the medieval Valencian population. We observe that the Islamic royal population is not different from the late medieval Christians in the urban context. Instead, we find evidence of a much later shift in the genetic composition of the Valencian population as a direct result of post-medieval episode of ethnic cleansing and cultural genocide early in the 17th century. I told you these niggas was gangbanging. It was all about gangbanging during that time, right? So the disposition of the Moriscos, this was followed by a repopulation effort by the Aragonese, Catalan, and the Navarrese migrants under Philip III. An estimated 300,000 Moriscos, or a third of the population, were expelled to North Africa from across Spain, much larger figure than the Jewish expulsion in 1492. These people, with a mix of Iberian and substantial North African related ancestry, have been the inhabitants of the regions for hundreds of years and had been forcibly converted from Islam to Catholicism a century earlier following the Reconquista. Despite a hugely civilizing legacy on the culture of Europe, particularly of the Iberian Peninsula, that endures to the present day, most of the last visible vestiges of the Moors of Spain were largely dispersed across the Mediterranean between 1609 and 1614 CE. As a result, a genetic bridge between Europe and Africa that had been in place for centuries and whose legacy we can detect in the genomes of those living in Valencia region up until the 17th century was thoroughly dismantled. And that's the motherfucking deal. There's the paper right there. Again, so we can look at the genomes of these people. You can see the African component is there, albeit very small amongst these people. Even in the Royal Islamic time period, which goes from the conquest all the way to the end of their rule, majority of their DNA is non-African and they're Iberian adjacent. So there you have it. The Moors are not these sub-Saharan African, West African people. They are more related to Eurasians or Europeans than anything, which makes sense because the story takes place in Iberia. So take that and put it in your pipe and smoke it. We killing all African suits, bro. 2025, no suit alive. You know how we rocking, man. It's YAP YAP to the death of me, nigga. Fuck the ops. Fuck the Afrocentrics and fuck the Black Hebrew Israelites. We're going to keep reading papers, keep our foot on y'all neck. You know how we rocking, man. And I meant that, nigga. And I sent that, nigga. I'm out this bitch. Peace. Yup.
Man, it's a new day. You know what I'm saying? A new day brings a new problem to a brother, and all I got to say is thank God for my mother, cause without my mommy dear, my life would have been a joke, either locked up laying dead or still slanging dope. But no, the Lord, he had a plan for me, and with his help my mother made a man of me. Didn't blindfold me to the world we was living in, taught me how to save my little dividends, so when I graduated I'd have a little school money. But in the 6th grade I wanted to be the school dummy, and flunked out of school with the flagpole, and left my mother dear at home with a sad soul, because my mother worked the fingers to the bone, cause we was alone, and me, I brought an F home. My real pops, he broke out with the style, so I respect my stepdad for raising another nigga's child. So now we living comfortable, taught me the game and how to be responsible, but back then I couldn't see it. I wanted to be a grown man at 14, so the kids leaving and ended up in a big fight and told me not to come home until I got my shit right. So now I'm living at my grandma's home. My grandma's strong, she's got 9 kids of her own, and keeping me ain't no big deal. But now that I'm much older, I see just how the shit feels. Being kind-hearted, not wanting to tell me no, even though my grandfather just had a stroke, and now the money's low. And pretty soon, a brother's gonna have to go, or either try to find a job so I can help out. I'm in the ghetto, I got to get myself out, and when I get out, I gotta try to pave the way so my family can have a better place to stay. I'm losing all hope, a brother's falling short, I can't cope, so now I'm slanging dope, and now my granny knows I'm doing wrong. She just praying for me heavily, take care of her grandson, and the Lord must have heard her prayer, cause he made me get a grip and got me on up out of there. I heard my mother say them streets is gonna kill you. You couldn't have told me nothing back then, but now I feel you. I'm 18 and now I'm having big fun. My baby's mother just had my first son, May 11th. I never will forget the day a star is born. Let's name him Little Scarface, my firstborn. And yo, I'm a proud father. I got a son, I got to be my son's father. And selling dope ain't the way that I can get ahead. But what the hell, I got to keep my baby fed. I buy him milk and Pampers trying to do my part. And he's my son, I got to try to make him hard. I buy him clothes and jewelry, not the Tonka toys, because the Tonka toys will only punk my boy. And I don't want my son to look at life through a replica of reality, trying to make it lifelike. But yet and still I let my son be a kid, just give him up the real, exactly like my mama did. So when he gets to be a man, he'll appreciate the game I gave him way back when he used to roller skate. And now my son is 4 years old. I really got to give the real and try to play the father's role, because these years he'll remember most. So it's all about little Marcus and me becoming close. But I got a bunch of obstacles. If it ain't my line of work, it's the girlies on my popsicle. Now everybody's got my baby, wanting to have their hands in my pocket, trying to drive me crazy.
It's your daughter, don't she look like you?
I just can't tell. Why don't you take her to my mama, do? Because my mother knows the real deal. On these hoochies popping coochie, trying to get a free meal. So now we in and out of coke, trying to get more money, bragging on a child support, telling her friends that she's breaking me. Now everybody knows that she was just faking, G. Come to find out the girl never had me. She's the baby's mother, but me, I ain't the baby's daddy. And biological testing proof you gotta get up off of me and go after the other dude. But now I finally got a real daughter, no need for the testing, I know that I'm the baby's father. I heard my daddy say them hoes would try to kill you. You couldn't have told me nothing back then, but now I feel you. I feel you. Now I'm 22 and finally got a grip on life. It's 1993, I put away my pocket knife and got a bigger stick to fight with. I'm young and black, so my choice ain't a nice stick, because we living in a concentration set, and every day we face to face with death. I've seen my homies go and come, and Judgment Day is just something we can't run from. So I know my number's coming up, so I gotta protect myself from suckers who be running up. And even though I hate killing off my own kind, I gotta be a man, and as a man I'ma defend mine. My brother Quan is trying to keep the neighborhood at peace. Don't fight each other, we got to stand and fight the beast. So united we stand, but we gon' fall quick, because we always trying to take another brother's shit. And the cops is in the same boat. Just because we coming up quick, they think we slang dope. They shootin' and kill, they gas ain't sparking duds. They shot my longtime partner Rudy in cold blood. And now the story's all twisted up. And if they gave the cop the chair, I really wouldn't give a fuck. Because you left my partner's family with memories. And after hearing this, I know you gon' remember me. But yet and still I find it hard for me to stay in touch. I see his parents and then I start to breaking up. Because I know what you did was wrong. But you won't realize until you dead and gone. It ain't no justifiable homicide. You never gave a warning. You straight up shot him from behind. But all the crying in the world ain't gon' bring him back. You give a gat to a black, he don't know how to act. But you gotta tell your story to the judge, not the imitation judge, the judge that everybody loves. And if the man upstairs grants you forgiveness, then in reality you took care of your business. But regardless, I know you wanna kill me, but I ain't gonna